Confidence is one of the most misunderstood traits in human psychology. People often imagine it as loud voices, sharp suits, and bold gestures. Yet history shows us another kind of confidence, one that is quieter, subtler, and far more dangerous. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. The kind that bends circumstances, influences people, and makes others question their own footing in your presence. This is the confidence Niccolo Machiavelli understood, the type woven deep into human behavior, politics, and psychology. When you hear the word Machiavellian, you may think of manipulation or cold calculation, but beyond the caricature lies a set of principles rooted in observation of real human nature, its desires, fears, and contradictions. Machiavelli did not invent these traits. He simply stripped away illusions and described them with unflinching honesty. And it is in this honesty that dangerous confidence is born. Dangerous confidence is not about arrogance. It is not about pretending to be more than you are. Rather, it comes from accepting the truths most people run away from, that others will judge you not by your intentions, but by your outcomes. That morality often bends in the presence of power, and that silence often speaks louder than performance. Consider this. The most intimidating presence in a room is rarely the one who talks the most. It is often the one who observes, who measures, who does not need to prove anything. Confidence is not always visible. It is felt. Machiavelli recognized this centuries ago, and modern psychology confirms it today. Studies show that calm, measured behavior is often read as competence, while excessive display is perceived as insecurity masked by noise. To become dangerously confident is not to imitate anyone else, but to sharpen your awareness of yourself and others. It is a path of observation, restraint, and calculated expression. And once you embrace it, people will begin to sense something different in you, a depth that cannot be easily shaken. Today we'll explore 7 Machiavellian principles that can transform your presence. Each one will not only shift how you see the world, but also how the world sees you. Number 1, embrace perception over intention. Machiavelli's insight that people judge you by results, not motives, captures one of the most enduring truths about human behavior. While we may want others to value our intentions, psychology shows that what leaves the strongest imprint on people's minds is what they see and experience, the outcomes. This is the foundation of what modern psychologists call the process of shaping how others perceive us by the results we produce and the images we project. It is not about deception. It is about recognizing that people rarely peek inside our heads to weigh our internal struggles, but they are quick to evaluate the effects of our actions. Consider how this principle plays out in everyday life. A leader in the workplace may have had the best intentions for a project, yet if it fails, their intentions will not shield them from criticism. On the other hand, someone who delivers success, whether through creativity, persistence, or strategy, is remembered and respected. Studies in organizational psychology confirm this bias. Employees and leaders alike are judged more favorably when they demonstrate competence through tangible outcomes, even if their process is invisible. Our brains, wired for survival, prefer visible proof over invisible motives. Results signal competence, reliability, and strength, while motives remain abstract and open to doubt. This does not mean intentions are meaningless. In personal relationships, they carry emotional weight. But even here, the outcomes shape trust. A partner may intend to be supportive, yet if their actions consistently fail to provide comfort or help, intentions lose their power. Neuroscience sheds light on why this happens. The brain's reward system is activated by concrete rewards, like help received, goals achieved, or relief given, rather than promises or hopes. Over time, people condition themselves to trust those who deliver. Machiavellian confidence is born from mastering this understanding. It is not loud or boastful, but deliberate. Instead of defending every choice or over-explaining motives, dangerously confident people let their results speak. This aligns with research on nonverbal dominance. When individuals achieve goals calmly and consistently, they radiate authority without needing to seek approval. Think of figures like Steve Jobs or Winston Churchill. Their intentions were often debated, even criticized, but their ability to deliver outcomes solidified their legacies. What makes this dangerous in the empowering sense is that it shifts your energy from worrying about perception to controlling execution. When you focus on outcomes, completing tasks, achieving goals, turning ideas into visible results, you disarm doubt and silence. Criticism. People may question your motives at first, but over time, results override suspicion. This doesn't just win respect. It builds an aura of inevitability around your presence. In a world where most defend themselves with words, those who let results do the talking stand apart. In practice, this means channeling effort into measurable achievements rather than explanations. Deliver work that speaks louder than apologies. Build habits that create consistent progress. And carry yourself with the calm assurance that results are the ultimate proof. This is the essence of impression management and the heartbeat of Machiavellian confidence. The quiet danger of someone whose actions leave no room for doubt. Number 2, master the art of silence. Speaking less gives your words more weight. This principle is not only intuitive, but deeply rooted in history, philosophy, and psychology. In Machiavellian thought, silence was never mere absence of speech. It was a deliberate weapon. Niccolo Machiavelli observed human behavior in courts, councils, and battlefields, and he knew that people fear and respect what they cannot easily read. A person who speaks sparingly unsettles others. It creates an air of mystery, suggesting that their words are not given freely but held with purpose. This is why rulers, generals, and even modern leaders who know when to remain quiet often command more influence than those who constantly fill the air with chatter. Psychology gives us further insight into why this works. Research on processing fluency, the ease with which information is understood, shows that people assign greater value to things that feel deliberate, rare, and difficult to obtain. Silence amplifies this effect. When someone rarely speaks, each word they do release is processed as intentional and meaningful. It is similar to scarcity in economics. The less available something is, the more people assume it must be worth. This is why a quiet leader in a meeting often shifts the room's attention the moment they choose to speak. Their silence has already framed their words as significant before they even arrive. Silence also sharpens observation. In conversations, those who speak the least often notice the most. While others reveal their thoughts, intentions, and insecurities, the silent observer gathers information, measures responses, and plans moves without revealing their own position. Machiavelli believed this was one of the most practical forms of power, controlling what you reveal while absorbing what others cannot hide. Modern psychology supports this with studies on active listening and social perception. showing that those who spend more time listening than speaking develop stronger insights into social dynamics. There is also a paradoxical charm in silence. Humans are wired with curiosity. When faced with uncertainty, our minds naturally fill the gaps. A person who withholds words stirs imagination, forcing others to interpret and speculate about their thoughts. This often leads to overestimation of their intelligence, authority, or confidence. In fact, research in communication science confirms that people frequently assume quieter individuals are more competent than they may actually be, simply because their restraint creates an aura of control. This can unsettle opponents, spark admiration, or even cultivate fear, depending on the situation. In everyday life, mastering silence can be transformative. It prevents rash reactions, buys time for clearer thinking, and makes interactions more intentional. In arguments, silence can disarm hostility. In negotiations, it can pressure the other party to reveal more than they intended. In relationships, it communicates depth and seriousness where constant words might dilute meaning. From Machiavelli's political lessons to modern psychological experiments, the truth remains. Silence is not weakness, but strategy. When wielded wisely, it turns speech into something far more potent, not by speaking more, but by ensuring that every word counts. This is why speaking less makes your voice heavier, your presence stronger, and your influence longer lasting. In a noisy world, silence is still one of the most powerful sounds. Number 3, control your emotional display. True confidence is often misunderstood. Many assume it is loud, brash, or fueled by dominance, yet history and psychology tell a different story. Confidence that endures is rooted in calmness. The truly confident are not easily provoked, because they have mastered a quality far greater than impulse: emotional regulation. Niccolò Machiavelli, often remembered for his sharp political insights, advised rulers to appear composed even in the midst of turmoil. In The Prince, he emphasized that a leader who loses his composure invites instability and loses authority. To Machiavelli, composure wasn't just about appearances. It was a tool of power. A ruler who seemed calm projected control, even if chaos raged beneath the surface. This idea still resonates today because it highlights the psychological weight of calmness in leadership and influence. Modern psychology aligns with this perspective. Emotional regulation, the ability to manage and respond to emotions in a healthy way, has been repeatedly linked to resilience, strong relationships, and effective leadership. Studies in neuroscience show that individuals who can regulate their emotions engage the prefrontal cortex more effectively, the area of the brain responsible for rational thought and long-term decision-making. Those who are quick to anger or easily provoked often default to the amygdala, the brain's threat center, which drives impulsive reactions. This difference in brain activity demonstrates why calmness is not a weakness, but a superpower. A calm mind has access to logic, perspective, and strategy, while an unsettled mind often reacts destructively. In social and professional contexts, calmness has a profound impact. Think about the moments when a heated argument erupts. The person who remains unshaken, listening carefully and responding with composure, commands respect. Psychologists call this emotional contagion. Our moods spread to those around us. When one person stays calm, it can de-escalate the entire room. This is why many great leaders, from Abraham Lincoln to Nelson Mandela, were admired for their ability to remain composed under immense pressure. Their calmness wasn't passivity. It was power expressed through restraint. Calmness also enhances personal resilience. Life inevitably delivers setbacks, disappointments, and crises. The difference between those who crumble and those who adapt often lies in how they manage emotional turbulence. Research in positive psychology shows that resilient individuals are not those who avoid stress, but those who regulate their emotions during it. They acknowledge their feelings without being controlled by them, and this enables them to pivot, problem solve, and persist. In this way, calmness becomes the foundation of strength, not its absence. Ultimately, both Machiavelli's wisdom and modern psychology converge on the same point. Calmness is not the silence of weakness, but the presence of control. To appear composed in turmoil is not to deny reality, but to master it. It creates an aura of stability that others instinctively trust. Whether in leadership, relationships, or personal battles, calmness disarms provocation, sharpens judgment, and builds resilience. In the end, calmness is not just a virtue, it is power. Number 4, appear stronger than you feel. Niccolo Machiavelli's writings are often associated with manipulation and cunning, but beneath the stereotype lies a more profound insight into human behavior, one that explains why appearances often carry more weight than hidden realities. Machiavelli observed, with the precision of a political scientist and the pragmatism of a survivor of Renaissance Italy's turbulent courts, that people rarely judge a leader or any individual based on their private doubts or inner turmoil. Instead, they take their cues from what they can see: posture, voice, steadiness, and the image of certainty. In this sense, dangerous confidence is not about lying or pretending to be someone you are not, but about mastering the art of stability, especially when the ground beneath you feels uncertain. Psychologists today reinforce this idea with the concept of social perception. People are wired to make snap judgments about competence and authority, often within the first 7 seconds of meeting someone. Research shows that these first impressions are overwhelmingly influenced by nonverbal cues, eye contact, tone, body language, rather than the actual content of what is said. A person may feel insecure on the inside, but if they project calmness and composure, observers interpret them as confident and capable. Machiavelli recognized this centuries before modern psychology put it into data. Reality, as people experience it, is filtered through perception. This does not mean confidence is about faking. In fact, studies in behavioral psychology reveal something called the self-perception effect. When you act in a certain way, say, standing tall, speaking slowly, or controlling your breath, your body and mind begin to align with the behavior you are projecting. A soldier who steadies his hands in battle even when terrified finds that the act of control reduces his fear. A speaker who slows her voice and pauses deliberately convinces not only the audience of her confidence, but also herself. The performance of confidence becomes the seed of real confidence. Machiavelli would have seen this as a pragmatic tool. Control the appearance, and soon the reality follows. Consider leadership in times of crisis. During World War II, Winston Churchill's speeches did not promise certainty of victory, but they projected an unshakable determination. People knew the threat was immense, yet his steady tone and controlled words carried a sense of assurance. The truth was uncertain. The appearance of confidence made survival possible. Machiavelli argued that rulers who showed hesitation or fear invited chaos, not because their fears were irrational, but because their people mirrored what they saw. Modern neuroscience explains this through mirror neurons, cells in the brain that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing it. When a leader projects steadiness, others feel it internally. When they display panic, others adopt that panic. This principle extends into everyday life. In workplaces, for example, managers who appear composed during difficult projects gain trust, even if they are privately unsure of every detail. In relationships, people are drawn to partners who project a calm, stable presence, not because they expect perfection, but because steadiness feels safe in a chaotic world. Dangerous confidence lies in this paradox. You may not always have certainty, but you can choose to embody steadiness, and by doing so, shape how others experience reality. It is worth noting, however, that Machiavelli never advocated blind arrogance. Dangerous confidence is not bluster or inflated ego. It is a discipline, an ability to regulate your external state regardless of internal storms. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy echoes this when it teaches that thoughts and emotions are not always within our control, but behaviors and expressions often are. By adjusting the visible, our breathing, posture, tone, we can transform not only how others see us, but how we feel inside. Ultimately, Machiavelli's lesson is timeless. People believe in what they see more than what they cannot. Dangerous confidence, therefore, is not about deception, but about alignment. It is the steady hand that reassures the crowd, the calm voice that commands attention, the presence that suggests strength even when uncertainty lingers. To embody this is not to deny reality, but to shape it, for both yourself and those who look to you for direction. In a world where perception drives belief, Machiavelli's insight remains both a warning and a tool. Appearances matter, and the wisest among us use that truth not to deceive, but to lead. Number 5, study human weakness without judgment. Machiavelli's philosophy was rooted in the recognition that humans are not driven by noble ideals alone, but by flaws, envy, fear, and ambition. These traits, rather than being condemned, were for him the very levers of human behavior. He understood that people act not always out of virtue, but out of self-interest, self-preservation, and the hunger for recognition. In this sense, Machiavelli was less a cynic and more a realist. He peeled back the layers of society to expose the mechanisms that actually drive human choices, whether in politics, business, or personal relationships. Dangerous confidence, then, is not born from ignoring these flaws, but from embracing the reality of them. It is the ability to walk into a room knowing that people are competing, posturing, comparing, and striving, and to remain steady and unshaken in the midst of it. In everyday life, this confidence manifests as clarity rather than arrogance. When you realize that envy often drives criticism, you stop internalizing every negative remark thrown your way. If someone belittles your achievement, a Machiavellian lens reminds you that they may be projecting their own insecurities. Likewise, when you understand fear as a motivator, you become aware of how often people cling to routines or resist change, not because they dislike you, but because they are threatened by uncertainty. Ambition, too, is neither good nor bad. It is the fuel of progress, but unchecked, it can make people ruthless. Recognizing these patterns allows you to navigate life with wisdom rather than naivete. You are no longer surprised by betrayal, nor are you devastated when loyalty is tested. Instead, you expect it as part of human nature. and you plan accordingly. This is where the dangerous part of confidence enters. Most people build their self-assurance on external validation, praise, recognition, applause. Such confidence is fragile, collapsing the moment disapproval arises. Dangerous confidence, in contrast, is built on internal clarity. Machiavelli would argue that if you know people will act from envy, fear, or ambition, then their approval or disapproval becomes less relevant. Your actions are guided by foresight and strategy, not by the shifting tides of opinion. Psychologists echo this idea. Cognitive behavioral studies show that people with a realistic, rather than idealized understanding of human behavior are more resilient in relationships and workplaces. They prepare mentally for disappointment, but are not paralyzed by it. They act strategically, while others act emotionally. History offers countless examples of leaders who embodied this form of confidence. Take Julius Caesar, who understood that his soldiers followed him not merely out of love, but because he satisfied their ambition with rewards and their fear with security. Or Winston Churchill, who steered Britain through World War II, not by pretending fear did not exist, but by channeling it into determination. Both leaders had flaws, yet their strength came from acknowledging the flaws of others and playing within those boundaries. Machiavelli's writings, especially in The Prince, remind us that power and influence belong not to the loudest, but to those who can read the room with accuracy and act accordingly. Applied to personal life, this philosophy becomes a shield. Imagine you are in a workplace where colleagues compete for recognition. Instead of resenting the politics, you understand ambition is at play. Instead of being blindsided by gossip, you recognize envy's role. Instead of being frustrated by resistance to your ideas, you see fear's grip. Dangerous confidence means you don't lash out emotionally or withdraw in despair. You adapt, strategize, and position yourself with calm foresight. You gain influence, not by dominating others, but by anticipating their behavior and responding in ways that protect your goals. At its core, Machiavellian dangerous confidence is not cruelty, but clarity. It is not manipulation for its own sake, but the art of navigating human flaws without resentment or surprise. In today's world, whether in business negotiations, friendships, or family dynamics, this perspective equips you with the mental armor to thrive. Instead of asking why people behave poorly, you accept that envy, fear, and ambition are timeless forces. Instead of resisting them, you learn to read them, use them, and rise above them. That, Machiavelli would say, is not only the path to survival, but the foundation of power. And in everyday life, it is the essence of confidence so steady, so clear, that it becomes dangerous, not because it harms, but because it cannot be shaken. Number 6, cultivate detachment. Confidence is often misunderstood in our modern world. Many believe it is found in loudness, in dominating a room with charisma, or in the constant chase for validation from others. Yet history, philosophy, and psychology teach us something very different. True confidence grows not in desperation, but in detachment. It takes root when a person no longer clings to the approval of others, when they are free enough within themselves to walk steadily without applause. This is not arrogance, but a calm, unshakable strength, an energy people sense and respect because it does not beg to be noticed. Niccolò Machiavelli, the Renaissance political thinker so often mischaracterized as ruthless, understood this well. In his writings particularly, Machiavelli argued that influence belongs to those who can stand apart, who do not cling too tightly to the shifting tides of public favor. A ruler, or in today's terms, any individual navigating life who depends too much on popularity, becomes enslaved to the crowd's moods. But one who acts with calm detachment, who understands that approval is fleeting, gains power that cannot be taken away by rumor or temporary disapproval. In that sense, confidence is born not of excess, but of restraint, not of grabbing, but of letting go. This idea finds a striking echo in Stoic philosophy. The Stoics, figures like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, taught that freedom comes not from multiplying desires, but from needing less. The more you crave recognition, possessions, or admiration, the more chains you place on yourself. A Stoic is confident precisely because he does not demand that the world agree with him. He stands firm, like a rock in the sea, while waves crash and pass. His strength lies in his detachment from outcomes, his acceptance of what he cannot control, and his mastery over his inner state. Modern psychology supports these insights. Studies in social psychology have shown that people who display what is known as secure self-esteem are more influential than those who exhibit contingent self-esteem. Secure self-esteem is rooted in self-respect and internal stability, while contingent self-esteem depends on constant external validation. In practice, this means that the person who feels worthy, regardless of applause or criticism, is naturally more magnetic. Others sense their independence. This independence is why leaders, whether in business or in social life, often project a calm authority when they're not desperate to please. We can see this in everyday life. Imagine a conversation between two colleagues. One constantly checks if his opinion is being accepted, adjusting his tone, over-explaining, and nervously scanning for approval. The other speaks slowly with conviction, not because he is trying to dominate, but because he believes in the value of his words. He does not push, he does not plead. And yet, which voice lingers in the memory? Which one carries influence? The answer is obvious. The voice detached from desperation carries weight. This dynamic is not only psychological, but also practical. Think of negotiations, whether in politics, business, or personal relationships. The person who needs the deal the most is always at a disadvantage. Desperation makes one predictable, easy to manipulate, and weak. But the one who is prepared to walk away, who holds desire loosely rather than tightly, possesses the upper hand. In economics, this is known as the principle of opportunity cost. But in life, it simply manifests as the quiet power of not clinging. Even biology hints at this truth. Research into human attraction shows that people are often drawn to those who seem less needy. This is not mystery, but evolution. Independence signals resourcefulness and self-sufficiency, qualities that throughout history have been essential for survival. In contrast, neediness signals instability, triggering caution rather than admiration. Thus, when you detach from the constant hunger for approval, you unconsciously project strength that others recognize, on both conscious and subconscious levels. Ultimately, the lesson is this: confidence grows when you are not enslaved to the opinions of others. Machiavelli saw it in the corridors of power. The Stoics taught it as the foundation of inner peace. Modern psychology confirms it through research into self-esteem and social dynamics. And everyday life proves it in the way calm strength quietly commands respect. To detach is not to withdraw from life, but to walk through it with freedom. When you no longer cling, you no longer fear losing. When you no longer beg, you no longer appear small. Instead, you project an effortless authority, the kind of confidence that does not shout, but cannot be ignored. Number 7. Learn when to be the lion and when to be the fox. Niccolo Machiavelli's metaphor of balancing force and cunning remains one of the most profound insights into the nature of power, leadership, and confidence. To understand this, we must first look at the context of his writings. In his classic work, Machiavelli observed rulers, generals, and politicians not as idealized heroes, but as flawed human beings navigating ambition, fear, loyalty, and betrayal. He concluded that true mastery over life and others does not come from brute strength alone or clever trickery in isolation, but from the ability to weave both together. Confidence in this light is not a fixed trait. It is adaptable, flexible, and capable of switching between strength and subtlety, depending on the circumstances. To see how this works, consider the lion and the fox, the two animals Machiavelli used as symbols. The lion represents force, strength, courage, and the raw ability to intimidate or defend. The fox, on the other hand, symbolizes cunning, awareness, cleverness, and the ability to avoid traps that brute strength cannot overcome. So a leader, or anyone who wishes to command respect, cannot rely on being one or the other. The lion without the fox is vulnerable to deception, while the fox without the lion lacks the ability to stand firm when challenged. Machiavelli argued that greatness lies in combining both, and this is where confidence becomes dangerous. It is not just about feeling secure within oneself, but about projecting an adaptability that unsettles those around you, leaving them unsure whether you will strike with strength or maneuver with subtlety. This principle extends beyond politics into everyday life. Take the workplace, for example. Some individuals believe confidence means being the loudest voice in the room, asserting their ideas with force. While this can sometimes establish authority, it often backfires when subtlety and emotional intelligence are needed to win allies or navigate complex relationships. Others hide behind cleverness alone, relying on wit, charm, or manipulation, yet falter when real confrontation demands a show of strength. The truly confident person knows when to speak firmly and when to remain quiet, when to stand their ground, and when to step aside strategically. This balance transforms ordinary confidence into a powerful tool that influences without needing constant validation. Psychology today echoes much of Machiavelli's observation. Research on adaptive confidence shows that people who can regulate their responses, sometimes through assertiveness, other times through empathy, tend to be more successful in leadership and personal relationships. The concept of situational awareness in modern psychology parallels Machiavelli's fox, the ability to read environments, anticipate reactions, and act accordingly. Meanwhile, the willingness to take decisive action when needed reflects the lion. Together they create a balance that is far more effective than either trait alone. History offers countless examples of this dynamic in action. Leaders such as Winston Churchill, who blended fiery speeches, force, with strategic alliances, cunning, or Martin Luther King Jr., who combined moral strength with tactical negotiation, illustrate how confidence is not rigid. Even in competitive sports, the athlete who knows when to play aggressively and when to conserve energy often outperforms the one who relies solely on brute power or constant trickery. The lesson is universal. Rigid confidence shatters when pressed, but adaptable confidence endures. In personal growth, this metaphor also challenges the way we see ourselves. Too often people believe they must fit into a singular mold, either the strong, unshakable figure or the clever, witty strategist. But real growth comes when you realize you're not limited to one role. Like Machiavelli's vision, confidence means recognizing when to embody strength and when to lean on subtlety. It is an art of timing, adaptability, and self-awareness. And because most people either overplay force or overplay cunning, the individual who masters both creates an aura of unpredictability that commands respect. This is why Machiavelli called such confidence dangerous, not because it harms, but because it is beyond easy control or opposition. In the end, the balance of force and cunning teaches us that confidence is not a mask you wear or a role you play. It is a living quality that shifts with circumstance. Sometimes you must roar like a lion to protect your boundaries or assert your presence. Other times you must move like a fox, quiet and calculating, guiding outcomes without ever revealing your hand. The power lies not in choosing one over the other, but in knowing when to embody each. That ability to adapt is what makes confidence truly formidable, and why those who possess it seem untouchable in the eyes of others. Confidence does not begin with a pose or a speech. It begins with clarity. The clarity Machiavelli sought when he stripped away illusions about human nature. Dangerous confidence is not aggression, but awareness. Not noise, but presence. And once you carry it, you will find that others adjust themselves around you, even before you say a word.